Good morning, everybody. So, we are studying hypersensitivity reaction. In our previous lecture, we discussed hypersensitivity type 1 reaction, which includes anaphylaxis. And we know that when the person reacts with some type of the allergen, it shows some abnormal reaction, that is allergic reaction. So in case of type 1 reaction, we discussed that if the person is having ability to produce Ig antibody in more concentration, or if there is overproduction of Ig antibodies, then there will be allergic reaction, because the Ig antibodies are reagenic and they are going to bind on the mast cell surface and leads to degranulation of mast cell, thus releasing mediators, which brings about allergic type of response. The mediators including histamine, serotonin, prostaglandin, bradykinin, kinin, platelet activating factor, etc. Whenever they are producing by the mast cells, they are going to affect different cells and they are going to also affect the function of different organs and cells. So in this way we observed the asthma and hay fever, which are the two examples of anaphylactic reaction, local anaphylaxis. Respiratory tract get affected here in asthmatic attack, and due to histamine and serotonin like mediators, there is a contraction of smooth muscles, due to which there is a difficulty in respiration. That part we have discussed in previous lecture. Now we will study type 2 reaction. We know, depending upon the mechanism, 4 types of hypersensitivity reactions have been classified: type 1, type 2, type 3 and type 4. Type 1 is antibody mediated, or wherever IgA production is there more, then it will lead to type 1. The type 2 reaction is blood transfusion reaction. The type 2 reaction is blood transfusion reaction. It is mediated mainly due to IgG antibodies and IgM antibodies. So when there is a production of IgG and IgM, and whenever there is a mismatching of blood groups, then such type of reactions may involve. Now we will discuss in detail what is the blood transfusion reaction and what is the exact mechanism behind that particular reaction. So type 2 reaction is targeted the entry of foreign cells and against self antigen. So whenever the antibodies are produced against foreign cell as well as against self antigen also, then such type of reactions may develop. So mainly IgG and IgM type of antibodies are responsible for type 2 hypersensitivity reaction, and along with that complement factor is also there. The complement component along with IgG and IgM antibodies mediate type 2 reaction. So here antibodies are produced against foreign antigen. They are going to promote destruction of foreign cells by complement lysis or antibody mediated lysis. This is usual mechanism. Whenever the antigen or foreign particle enters in our body, in response to that our body produces antibodies. These antibodies may belong to class IgG or IgM, and whenever these antibodies are produced, they are going to bind to the antigen, and in presence of complement there may be lysis of the cell. So either complement mediated lysis of foreign cell will take place, or it may be antibody mediated. So here example of type 2 reaction is blood transfusion reaction. What is blood transfusion? See, we know that human blood or human blood groups, they are of different types. Mainly human blood or total population have been divided into blood group A, B, AB and O. Some person in our community may have blood group A, some person may have blood group B, some have AB blood group, some may have O blood group. So This classification of blood groups depending upon the presence or absence of typical antigen on RBC. Those persons who are having A antigen on their RBC, they are said to have A blood group. Those persons who are having B antigen on the RBC surface, these are said to be having B blood group. Okay, in this way we are classifying AB, AB and O. The person who is having A blood group may have anti-B antibody in his serum. The person who is having B blood group may have anti-A antibodies in his serum, like that. The person who is having AB antibody, no. And the person who is having O antigen may have anti-A, anti-B antibodies in his serum. The person who is having AB blood group may have A and B. So depending upon the type of antigen, blood groups are classified, and all the RBCs of our blood groups have H antigen on their surface. So the person who is having A blood group will have A antigen. ज्या लोकांचा ब्लड ग्रुप ए आहे त्यांच्या RBCवरती ए अँटीजन असतात, पण त्यांच्या सिरममध्ये अँटी बी अँटीबॉडीज असतात, अँटी ए अँटीबॉडीज असत नाहीत. ज्यांचा ब्लड ग्रुप ए आहे त्यांच्या सिरममध्ये अँटी बी अँटीबॉडीज असतात, आणि ज्यांचा बी ब्लड ग्रुप आहे त्या लोकांच्या मध्ये RBCवरती बी अँटीजन असतात, पण त्यांच्या सिरममध्ये अँटी ए अँटीबॉडीज असतात, vice versa. So the person cannot receive the blood against which he has antibodies in serum. म्हणजे काय, या वाक्याचा अर्थ, ब्लड ट्रान्सफ्युजन रिॲक्शनमध्ये ज्यावेळेला ब्लड डोनेट केलं जातं किंवा घेतलं जातं, अशा वेळेला डोनेट करण्यापूर्वी किंवा घेण्यापूर्वी ब्लड ग्रुप प्रॉपर मॅच होणं आवश्यक आहे. इफ द ब्लड ग्रुप्स आर प्रॉपरली मॅच, देन ओनली डोनर कॅन डोनेट ब्लड अँड रिसिपियंट कॅन टेक द ब्लड. जर ब्लड ग्रुप मॅच झाला नसेल किंवा होत नसेल तर ब्लड ट्रान्सफ्युजन रिॲक्शन आपल्याला किंवा ब्लड ट्रान्सफ्युजन करता येणार नाही. सो प्रॉपर ब्लड ग्रुप मॅचिंग प्रायर टू ब्लड ट्रान्सफ्युजन इज व्हेरी नेसेसरी. इफ ब्लड इज नॉट प्रॉपरली मॅच, देर विल बी कॉम्प्लिकेशन. आता यामध्ये काय सांगितलेलं आहे की पर्सन कॅनॉट रिसीव द ब्लड अगेन्स्ट विच ही हॅज अँटीबॉडीज इन सिरम. ज्या म्हणजे काय, समजा पर्सनचा ब्लड ग्रुप ए आहे तर त्याला ए ग्रुपचाच पर्सनचं ब्लड चालेल, तो बी ग्रुपचं ब्लड घेऊ शकत नाही. म्हणजे काय, कारण त्याच्यामध्ये अँटी बी अँटीबॉडीज त्याच्या ब्लड ग्रुपमध्ये त्याच्या सिरममध्ये असतात. मग जर त्यांनी चुकून बी ब्लड ग्रुपचं ब्लड जर घेतलं तर अँटीजन अँटीबॉडी रिॲक्शन होऊ शकते, कारण त्याच्या सिरममध्ये अँटी बी अँटीबॉडीज आहेत. जरी त्याचा ब्लड ग्रुप ए असला तरी त्याच्या सिरममध्ये अँटी बी अँटीबॉडीज असतात, त्यामुळे त्याला बी ब्लड ग्रुपचं ब्लड घेता येणार नाही, कारण अँटीजन अँटीबॉडी रिॲक्शन होऊ शकते. सो द पर्सन कॅनॉट रिसीव द ब्लड अगेन्स्ट विच ही हॅज अँटीबॉडीज इन ही सिरम. फॉर एक्झाम्पल, द पर्सन हू हॅव ए ब्लड ग्रुप कॅन रिसीव द ब्लड फ्रॉम ए बट नॉट फ्रॉम बी. त्यामुळं ज्या लोकांचा ब्लड ग्रुप ए आहे त्यांना एचंच ब्लड चालतं किंवा ओचं चालतं, पण बीचं चालणार नाही, बिकॉज इन ही सिरम अँटी बी अँटीबॉडीज आर प्रेझेंट. तसंच ज्या पर्सनचा ब्लड ग्रुप बी आहे त्यांना बीचंच ब्लड चालणार, बी ग्रुपचं, एचं चालणार नाही, कारण बी ज्यांचा ब्लड ग्रुप आहे त्यांच्या सिरममध्ये अँटी ए अँटीबॉडीज असतात. सो बिफोर ट्रान्सफ्युजन प्रॉपर ब्लड ग्रुप मॅचिंग इज नेसेसरी. व्हेनेवर देर इज अ ब्लड ट्रान्सफ्युजन म्हणजे ब्लड डोनेशन असेल त्यावेळेला की प्रॉपर मॅचिंग ब्लड ग्रुपचं होतं आहे किंवा नाही हे बघणं आवश्यक आहे. अदरवाईज सिरियस कॉम्प्लिकेशन्स मे ऑकर बिकॉज इट इज अ ब्लड. सो ब्लड इज सर्क्युलेटिंग फ्लुइड. जेव्हा आपण ब्लड दुसऱ्याचं घेतो तेव्हा ते आपल्या पूर्ण शरीरामध्ये सर्क्युलेट होणार आहे. जर आपण चुकीचं ब्लड घेतलं, ब्लड ग्रुप असेल, प्रॉपर मॅच झाला नसेल आणि तरी पण आपण ब्लड ते ट्रान्सफ्युजन किंवा घेतलेलं असेल तर त्यामध्ये सिरियस कॉम्प्लिकेशन होऊ शकतात. If person having B blood group donates the blood to a person having A blood group, the anti-B antibodies present in the recipient blood will bind to donor's RBC. ज्या ब्लड ग्रुप समजा ए ब्लड ग्रुप आहे आणि त्यांनी बीचं ब्लड घेतलेलं असेल तर बी ब्लड ग्रुपमध्ये म्हणजे बी अँटीजन असणार आर बी सीवरती आणि ए ब्लड ग्रुप ज्यांचा आहे त्यांच्या सिरममध्ये अँटी बी अँटीबॉडीज आहेत त्यामुळं त्या अँटीजन अँटीबॉडी रिॲक्शन त्या ठिकाणी होऊ शकते. द अँटी बी अँटीबॉडीज प्रेझेंट इन द रिसिपियंट ब्लड विल बाइंड टू डोनर्स आर बी सीज and brings about the destruction of RBC by means of complement mediated lysis. So there is a lysis of RBC may take place, and if there is a hemolysis then complication will be there. So the person who is having A blood group can take the blood from A only, not from B. So if the proper blood group matching is not there and even though there is a transfusion reaction, then what type of symptoms can be seen? So if there is no proper matching of blood group, जर ब्लड ग्रुप प्रॉपरली मॅच होत नसतील म्हणजे ए बी वगैरे तर त्या ठिकाणी वेगवेगळे सिम्पटम्स दिसून येतात. इफ देर इज नो प्रॉपर मॅचिंग ऑफ ब्लड ग्रुप, मॅसिव्ह इंट्राव्हेस्क्युलर हिमोलायसिस विल ऑकर. हिमोलायसिस मीन्स lysis of RBCs. So hemolysis will occur and symptoms like fever, chills, clotting within the blood vessels, nausea, vomiting, back pain, chest pain and presence of hemoglobin in urine, these symptoms are observed. So whenever there is a transfusion reaction or whenever there is no proper matching of blood groups, then even though if we transfuse the blood, proper match होत नसताना सुद्धा जर चुकून ब्लड तुम्ही ट्रान्सफ्यूज केलं तर त्या ठिकाणी सिम्पटम आपल्याला काय काय दिसतात. फिवर, चिल्स, हिमोलायसिस म्हणजे आर बी सी लाईज होतात, क्लॉटिंग विदिन द ब्लड व्हेसल, नाउझिया, वॉमिटिंग, पेन, बॅक पेन, चेस्ट पेन आणि हिमोग्लोबिन इन युरिनमध्ये हिमोग्लोबिन हळूहळू सिक्रेट व्हायला लागतं. सो दिस टाईप ऑफ द सिम्पटम्स कॅन बी सीन. फिवर, चिल्स, क्लॉटिंग विदिन द वेसल्स, हिमोलायसिस, प्रेझेन्स ऑफ हिमोग्लोबिन इन युरिन, चेस्ट पेन, बॅक पेन. सो दिस टाईप ऑफ द सिम्पटम्स कॅन बी सीन. So how we can prevent this? The prevention of transfusion reaction, it can be prevented by if we want to prevent such type of the complications, then proper matching or typing of blood groups of donor and recipient is necessary. Before the transfusion, blood देण्यापूर्वी किंवा घेण्यापूर्वी दोघांचेही डोनर आणि रिसिपियंटचे ब्लड ग्रुप चेक केलेले असले पाहिजेत. जर ते प्रॉपरली मॅच होत असतील तरच ते आपण ते घेऊ शकतो किंवा ट्रान्सफ्युजन रिॲक्शन करू शकतो किंवा ब्लड ट्रान्सफ्युजन करू शकतो. यूज ऑफ कम्पॅटिबल ब्लड ग्रुप अवॉइड ट्रान्सफ्युजन रिॲक्शन म्हणजे प्रॉपर मॅचिंग जर असेल तर आपण हे सगळं रिॲक्शन जी आहे किंवा कॉम्प्लिकेशन जे आहेत ते आपण टाळू शकतो. सो वी कॅन अवॉइड सिरियस कॉम्प्लिकेशन बाय prior testing or typing of blood groups of both donor and recipient. डोनर म्हणजे देणारा रक्तदाता, डोनर आणि रिसिपियंटचे ब्लड ग्रुप व्यवस्थित मॅच होतात किंवा नाही हे जर आपण पहिल्यांदा बघितलं आणि मग ट्रान्सफ्युजन केलं किंवा ब्लड डोनेशन केलं तर ते कॉम्प्लिकेशन आपण टाळू शकतो. मग त्या ठिकाणी कॉम्प्लिकेशन्स होणार नाहीत. So proper typing and proper matching prior to blood transfusion is very important and it is needed before the transfusion reaction or before the blood transfusion. Then the next one is the erythroblastosis fetalis. So erythroblastosis, erythrocytes means RBCs. Erythroblastosis fetalis actually It is a hemolytic disease of newborn, which is developed when Rh negative woman conceives and has an Rh positive son or daughter. Hemolytic disease of newborn or erythroblastosis fetalis. Erythrocytes means RBCs. Fetalis means fetus or small child. So whenever the this type of the symptom, this type of the hemolytic disease will be seen in case of Rh negative mother if she conceives the Rh positive son or daughter. Then in case of offspring of such Rh negative mother, we can observe hemolytic disease or erythroblastosis fetalis. What happens here? The blood of fetus is not in direct contact with the circulation of mother and is maintained separately by placenta. So we know that if the mother is having Rh negative blood group, then and if she is conceiving the child who is having Rh positive, then what will happen? A small amount of RBCs may get enter in blood circulation because to the placenta, and this small amount of RBCs when enters in mother circulation, they are going to induce an immune response. Mother's blood group is Rh negative and fetus blood group is Rh positive. So in that case, RBCs from fetus may enter in mother circulation and induce an immune response. So if such thing happen, then mother will produce antibodies against the RBCs of fetus. And if these antibodies are produced, they are going to react with RBCs of the fetus or child. What happens here? At the time of delivery, when there is a placental breaks, large amount of child's RBCs enters in mother circulation and they will induce an immune response in mother. So if mother is Rh negative, antigen D is present on the surface of child RBCs. It is considered as a foreign antigen by immune system of mother. मदरची इम्युन सिस्टीम त्या अँटिजनला जरी ते चाइल्ड असलं तरी त्या चाइल्डमधले RBCवरती जे अँटिजन आहेत ते फॉरेन म्हणूनच ट्रीट केले जातात अँड मदर इज प्रोड्युसिंग इम्युन रिस्पॉन्स अगेन्स्ट द चाइल्ड RBC. But there is no risk to the first child. First child will escape. What is the problem here? During the subsequent pregnancy, the second child will have high risk. Because at that time, what happens? Sufficient RBCs from child, they are going to induce immune response in mother and mother will produce antibodies against the antigen on fetus RBCs. So sufficient antibodies will be present in subsequent pregnancy and that time the second child will carry the high risk due to antibodies present by mother and that antibodies will be going to lyse the RBCs of the next or second child. So in that case there may be problem or it may be very fatal or harmful to the next child or second child. So there may be the lysis and ultimately the death of the second child. So that type of the problem is there if the mother is having Rh negative blood group. So this is called as erythroblastosis fetalis. So that means result will be it is very dangerous to the next child. There may be the death of the next child due to RBC destruction. So that is ultimately due to antibodies produced by mother itself and these antibodies pass through mother's placenta during the time of delivery and that antibodies may be harmful to the child because these antibodies they are going to react with the RBCs of the second child and they are going to destroy the RBCs of the child. So that is the fetalis. So when this thing happen, what happened actually, why the death is there, the anemic condition becomes very serious, and the hemoglobin which is releases from RBCs get converted into bilirubin, and this bilirubin which is soluble here, that bilirubin is responsible for cerebral damage in the fetus. So there will be the damage to brain, and in this way due to bilirubin accumulation as well as due to lysis of RBCs as well as due to cerebral damage, there may be the death of the child, that is the erythroblastosis fetalis. So this thing may happen there, and in order to avoid all these things, if the mother is having Rh negative blood group, then she can avoid such type of the complication by taking some injection at the time of delivery. So she can take precaution about this type of the complication and can save the child during the subsequent pregnancy. So that thing may have, that means there is no any further fear nowadays, because so many different types of antibodies are available. They can be given through intravenous injection to mother, and if sufficient antibodies are already there, then it can make immune and the child can be saved. So this is, in this way the transfusion reactions are there, and in this way we can avoid such fatal things and such type of the complications. So this is due to actually the antibodies produced by mother itself. So such thing may happen there. This is a blood transfusion reaction. It is nothing but it comes under hypersensitivity reaction like that. So even though the fetus or even though the child is there, the antibodies, the antigens of the child are treated as a foreign. Even though the child is there, the child's antigen will be treated as a foreign antigen, and therefore mother produces antibodies against her own child's antigen. So such type of serious complication may be there, but we can avoid this by some taking antibodies or ready-made antibodies, and we can avoid this particular complications. So Rh incompatibility, Rh factor is very important, whether the positive and negative blood groups. So this thing is very important here. Determination of Rh positivity and negativity prior to transfusion rejection is very important. Such complications should not be there. Ultimately it is the blood. So we are taking the blood from the unknown person, but if it is properly matching, then only we can take. Otherwise, serious complications may be there whenever there is a transfusion reaction. So diagnosis of Rh incompatibility. Incompatibility means whenever there is no proper matching of the blood group. Compatibility means proper matching. Incompatibility means no proper matching. So whenever there is whether the blood groups are properly matched or not, whenever there is a difficulty in blood group determination, then we can go for further test, which is direct Coombs test or indirect Coombs test. We can perform the direct or indirect Coombs test for proper typing of blood groups or blood group matching. If there is any suspicious or any doubts regarding the determination by usual slide test method, then we can go for direct or indirect Coombs test in order to determine properly or accurately the blood group of the person or donor and recipient. And once it is determined, then we go for the transfusion, blood transfusion, that is donation of blood or acceptance of blood. So in this way, the hypersensitivity type 2 reaction, that is the blood transfusion reaction, in which we discuss IgG or IgM mediated and complement mediated lysis of RBC is there, and blood transfusion reaction is the best example of hypersensitivity type 2. We also discuss how it can be avoided by taking ready-made antibodies as well as proper matching of blood groups or proper typing of blood groups prior to blood transfusion is very necessary. It is extremely essential. If any doubts are there in determination, then we can go for direct Coombs test or indirect Coombs test, which will be help us for proper matching or typing of the blood, and it will also helping us to avoid the complications during or after the blood transfusion. Thank you.